All right. Well, today we have our second episode of the Taking Inventory sort of LA rebuilding series. Today we're going to talk about housing, zoning. I think like the big thing I'm kind of curious about and why I'm really lucky to be talking to Alexis today is like as we think about rebuilding, what things should we be pushing with our local politicians? And then like how do we rethink building in a better way? So thank you. This is Alexis Rivas, the co-founder or just
CEO.
And CEO.
Yep. Co-founder and CEO.
Of Cover. We're actually inside Cover today, which Alexis will talk about in a second, but he's basically rethinking like every aspect of home building and housing. And so thank you, man, for taking time to do this.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, maybe just before we get into some of the stuff on like the policy side and just the kind of home building in general, can you just kind of give people some context of like Cover and kind of your thesis and vision for housing in the future?
Yeah. So we, so Cover designs, permits, engineers, manufactures, and installs custom homes. So we're inside of a Cover, inside of our 80,000 square foot factory in Los Angeles right now. And this is a home. We've built the fastest ADU in Los Angeles City, and we're building multiple homes and ADUs all over Southern California. So we've got licensed architects, engineers, and we are a licensed general contractor and a state-approved factory-built housing manufacturer. So it's like we do it all.
Yeah, and obviously, like if you're listening to this, you can't see the video, but like we're legitimately inside of this home that they made in a couple weeks.
Yeah,
and it looks like I'm in like a really nice house in the Palisades. And I think one thing that's also just kind of interesting in general is that like when you think about these homes traditionally, at least I kind of thought of them as being like smaller kind of ADUs. Like you could build like real homes.
Yes. Yeah, we've got a 3,000 square foot home with a 700 square foot attached ADU in the permitting process right now. And we've done 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom homes. We've done 3-bedroom homes, and we're going bigger and bigger.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Well, I think, for most people listening to this, unfortunately, they probably were impacted by the Palisades fires. And I think one thing that I've been trying to just understand a little bit better is when it comes to sort of this entire rebuild process, right, like how do we A, get to move really fast, and then B, how do we get the politicians to rethink these cities? And I think, at least for us right now, like I think zoning becomes a really big issue. We all want to rebuild. Maybe we want to rebuild exactly the same, or maybe we want to rebuild different. Like, how do you look at that? And like, what should us as like citizens of the Palisades be pushing for as we start to go ahead and invest back into the community?
So yeah, there's a lot there. I think pushing for. I mean, let's just start with the process of building, right? Really pushing for transparency from timelines from the city is going to be super key, because the better you can plan ahead, the lower your costs will be, and the faster you get back into your homes.
And you currently are building. You have like a permit that is pending already. Like, is the red tape actually being cut? Or?
Yeah. So we've submitted a permit for the Palisades. We submitted it last week, beginning of last week. And so far, like they do have a little button that says, have you been affected by the recent fires? And we checked that button. But other than that, the rest of the processes look the same as conventional building.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's, we're really familiar with the process. We've built a lot of homes, but it's not a straightforward process. And I think there is a lot further room. I mean, they've got to cut the red tape. Right.
And like, how does it work today? And then I guess like, and also maybe, no, how does it work today? How should it work? And then like, if you were to totally rethink it, how would it like definitely work?
I mean, I think the city has to, for like straightforward projects, right? Like maybe not on the side of like a huge cliff, but for the majority of the homes and ADUs that people are going to want to build, they're relatively straightforward flat lots. And for about half of them, they're straightforward flat lots in the Palisades. And for those, the city should just allow self-certification, which is basically in the U.S., you're typically innocent until proven guilty, right? Except for permitting, it's the opposite. You're always guilty until you prove to the city that your plans are innocent, right? So you've got to like go and prove that you're building everything to code and by the book, instead of the city assuming that you're building things to code by the book and coming and inspecting and just saying, yeah, you are. Right? So you could actually just flip that and say, go build, and then call for city inspections at the required times. The city inspector comes, checks. You don't need permits. Permits don't make homes safer. Inspections do. Right? So the whole permitting process before construction starts doesn't actually enable or create safety. It's just kind of it's guardrails. But for people who have built many times before, professionals, licensed architects, licensed engineers, these are people who have their licenses on the line. They know what they're doing. They've done it many times before. They know how to build to code. The permits are not a necessary step. And there's cities and counties that already do this. San Diego County has self-certification. Chicago has self-certification for certain types of projects. And it really cuts on the permitting time, and time is money.
And I had no idea it worked that way. Do you know if there's like an active movement to petition for self-certification for this?
There is.
Okay.
There is. And I would highly suggest like advocating for it, because you can always go to the city and permit something, but if you have the option to self-certify, it's an additional option that you have.
Crazy. And then I guess for like in particular, I guess maybe the zoning side of it. I know this was like your thesis kind of growing up. I mean, you give some background on the thesis and what you worked on in the past, and then maybe also just like it'd be really interesting to know like other ways we should be thinking about potentially going to, in particular, like our local politicians and say, can we rethink this a little bit?
Yeah. So on the zoning thing, I think one thing that I'd like really encourage is for cities and for people to advocate for this is to at least protect everything that you had the right to build before the fires happened. You shouldn't be losing the ability to build something that you could have built right before the fires. There's been talk at a county level of taking some of those options away. So like I see that as like, nobody's forcing you to build something you don't want to build, but you should at least have the option to build what you could have built before the fires. So that's one, like, that's just like, to me, that's like where it starts. Then when it comes to zoning, I mean, the thesis is that you have this problem basically where you have a lot of things that are often thought of as rights, like views, right, or height limitations, or all of these things that are codified into zoning and can be kind of treated as rights. But then there's a lot of tensions and frustration when there's proposals or changes to those things, because it's like, well, I bought into this area because of this, right, or because I was expecting something to change, right? There's expectations around these, and if you actually just say, let's quantify those things, right? Let's quantify them, and then let's make them tradable, right? Like air rights in New York, right? You can trade them, you can sell them. Then you allow for change to happen in a community over time organically, in a way that is sort of agreed upon by the people that it's directly affecting. So I think that that's obviously like a really different way of doing zoning. I haven't seen anyone do that, but it's a way that allows a community to change over time in a way that it governs that change on its own.
And like, is it practical for that to actually happen? I guess like for us right now, we're like, there's nothing there. Like I was up there a week ago, a friend has sent me a picture, and they basically said it's a construction zone. He said actually it's not a war zone anymore, it's a construction zone. But there's like really, there's going to be tons of lots that don't get rebuilt, or at least not going to be rebuilt for a long time.
Right.
Like, would this be now, like, is now the time for us to go ahead and try to rethink these areas? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think you don't want to take away what people had, right? But if there's a time to implement a change like this that allows them to keep what they had, and then if they want to, like, agree and kind of self-govern to create an alternative way of rebuilding, I think now is the time. Yeah, there's, I'm not saying it's like practical. It's like not easy to do, but if there is a time to do it, it would be now.
Yeah. Well, and then one other thing that we were talking about before we started recording is just like it appears as if the price for land in LA is going to not dramatically decrease, which is like, I guess, a good thing for maybe for homeowners. But it is really complicated given that the price to rebuild is going up so much more. Can you kind of just talk and maybe and I don't want you like talking your book, obviously, but I do think it is important, like building in a more modular way, building kind of in a non-traditional way, like that is like finally a viable option for people to consider. And can you kind of just explain like how you guys do it and how people should think about that?
Yeah, so we've redesigned the entire like home building process from the ground up to be geared towards manufacturability and rapid assembly. right? And so what we've done is we've basically taken what's typically a very fragmented process. Like if you're going to build a home, often you'll hire like an architect, an engineer, and then a GC, and then that GC will have a bunch of subs that they've worked with. And you might have, in total, somewhere between 20 and 30 people working on your home. 20 to 30 different like entities working on your home. And that's like an extremely fragmented process. And as a result of that fragmentation, it's expensive. There's a lot of like coordination involved. It's time consuming and it's pretty unpredictable, both in cost and timeline. And what we've done is we've said, let's treat building homes more like a car, where we do it all, right? We're the architect, engineer, designer. We do the permits. We manufacture it in a factory. We do the foundations, and then we deliver it on a regular truck and then rapidly assemble it. So we do the whole thing from start to finish, but it's in a way that's kind of like an engineered building system, an engineered product. And so there are different ways to do home building, right? There's the conventional way, which is actually 98% of construction in the US. And then there's what we do, which is building it in a factory, which is about 2%. And if we're successful, it'll be a lot more than 2%. And the advantages that you get with this approach is that you can actually, there are limitations, like there are drawbacks. It's not quite as custom, but it's very custom. I mean, we've had people that are surprised when they see the designs, are like, this is exactly what I wanted. This fit my previous footprint. So yeah, it's like the way to think about it is like what we've basically done is engineered a set of Lego blocks, wall panels, roof panels, floor panels. Those panels are made in the factory. Those panels are standard, but you can combine those standard panels like Legos to make pretty much any kind of layout, right? So, like Legos, there are some limitations. You can only increase it by like one Lego grid, right? And so we have a grid too, but it's very flexible within that.
And just for people who are thinking about rebuilding, like a 2-story house can exist like this,
yes.
and like for, I guess maybe like from a pure like fire resistant, we were talking about this earlier, and I think we're probably both very much in agreement that like it's probably not like the Palisades fire is not a function of like these houses not being defended necessarily like properly in terms of the building code. I think you said the average house.
Not 1963, I think.
Yeah. So these like old houses that have just like were by old permits. The water shortage was most likely the reason why all our houses burned down. But
not clearing the fuel for the fire is the brush.
Yeah, that would have been helpful.
Yeah.
But I guess as you think about rebuilding and using cover to build, like, are there things that are built inside this that are going to make it more likely to be fire resistant?
Yeah, so it is. So since the beginning, we've always been building entirely with steel, light gauge steel. So it's an entirely steel structure. There's no wood in the structure, which means it's just non-combustible, right? It's not adding fuel to the fire. And like the only thing that's wood in our homes is like the wood floor, the finished floor. That's it. So it's far better from like a fire resilience standpoint. We also use great materials on the outside. It's entirely steel around the entire exterior. We use aluminum windows and doors with like double paned tempered glass on each side. All these things contribute. And then when you combine that with like defensible space around your yard and how you build, it all helps. So I also don't have attics. They're fairly modern builds. They don't have attics, and so you don't have a place for like embers to go into and ignite. The attic is a pretty common place for the fire to spread into.
And then is your kind of vision, I guess, like, for Altadena and for the Palisades, like, you really do think, again, like, obviously you're biased because you have this company, but like this is a better way for many people to think about rebuilding, like in terms of just safety, speed, and price, because the price per square foot is the thing that's going to screw us.
Yeah. So I think like we're definitely we're talking to hundreds of people, and we're doing designs for them. We've also dedicated some time to like doing some free design work for a lot of people. So we're trying to do our part to help people explore like what their options are to build. It's not the right solution for everyone, right? I'd say like if you're looking for something extremely specific and like nuanced, or like you want to build back exactly what you had, we're not the right fit. We also don't do basements, which some people had basements. Like we wouldn't do basements. But if you're looking, We also wouldn't do like a, like a 5-story split level on like a cliff, where it's just along the whole cliff or something like that. There's like a need for custom architecture and construction there. But if you're looking for like your typical, 1 or 2 story, anywhere from like 1,000 to even, 4,000 square feet, and you like modern, and you like mid-century modern, or like Eichler homes, courtyards, lots of light, lots of floor-to-ceiling windows, and you're looking for something that's like really nice, that's us, and fast. Like we're the fastest way to build. Yeah.
And I guess like maybe kind of fast forward, I don't know, 20 years from now, like, is this the default way people build new homes?
Yeah, I think so. Like, there's still going to be conventionally built homes, but it should be the minority. It's kind of like, I mean, if you think about how homes are built today, imagine if like when you buy a car, you had someone come to your driveway and like put together a chassis, and then you had someone else come and like put like the wheels and build the frame, and then you had another person come in and do the interiors and then the exterior. I mean, your car would be $1 million, right? It would probably suck, right? Because factories do a really good job at repeatable quality, and it would take forever, right, to build your car. And yeah, it would be different. It would be a bit more unique than your current car, but it's not going to be a better car, right? So like, and there's no reason you can't do that for homes too. Like they're very similar products actually, right? Yeah.
Interesting. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess for anyone that's like thinking about just like trying to rebuild smarter and more efficiently, faster, like how can they reach you? Would you like, if people like, even if they don't want to necessarily use cover, like would you like take some time, just kind of let them pick your brain on how to do this smarter going forward?
Yeah, I mean, reach out. Like we've built a lot in LA. If if you're interested in building with us, or just like need pointers on anything, reach out. Our website's buildcover.com, and our email is hello@buildcover.com. Phone number is 424-245-1898. So like you can reach out, and we'll try to do our best to help.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it, man. Thank you. And again, like we can't build back the same way we did before. Obviously, I want everyone to have everyone should have the right to, but like we have to be smarter, and hopefully the city will allow us to be smarter and to do things faster. The self-permitting thing, I think that's one that feels like just the most no-brainer in the world. It's
such an obvious win because it's like it works. Like people have done it.
Yeah.
And then it'll free up the city resources to focus on the things that actually like have a bigger impact on public safety, like big buildings, clearing brush.
Yeah.
That's stuff like that.
Yes. All right. Well, if anyone knows Tracy Park that's listening to this, tell her that. We'll send this to her too.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. All right. Thanks, bud.
Thank you.